Welcome, Fablers, to the official start of your weekend. This is, of course, Fawks Talks, the only show on the Fable 42 Network devoted to all the other shows on the Fable 42 Network, where we build community. That's what we build through friendship, gaming, and chaos. I'm your host, Ronan Fox. With me, as always, is Cody. Say hello, Cody.
Howdy, everybody.
And, of course, Mr. Solo. Say hello, Chris.
Hello, Chris.
If this is your first time joining us, welcome. Glad you can make it. This is a show where we take a factual look back at this week's campaigns and put a Fox twist on all the choices that were made. Tonight, we sit down with our special guests, Lizzy Donahue and Eddie Gilbert, and looking ahead to tonight with Vault 42, where our Wastelanders walk the not-so-lonely road of retribution. And on Legends of Shah Gal, our group meets the only dim-witted beacon of light on their way out of the gruesome grotto. And on Realms of Ukador, we watch the crazy chain go off the rails on the highway to Frozen Hell. But before we get into all of that, let's get into some sponsors and announcements. First up is Griffin Co. Everything that you guys see that is 3D printed on all of our streams is brought to you by Griffin Co. Griffin Co. It's going to be that night, apparently. Shout out to them. And Vorpal Board. So if you guys are playing remotely, like most of us are right now, check out our friends at Vorpal Board, which gives you the ability to play any game off your shelf using the table streaming and component scanning technology. So pretty dope. Check them out. As far as other mentions go, of course, we are always on Patreon, so check us out there, find out how you can support us, and then all the benefits you will receive for doing so, including the upcoming community games, so if you're interested in that, check out our Discord. Also, there is Ko-Fi, so if you want to find out how to support us that way, I think the links are down there, so just follow those. And video on demand. So all of our content is on demand. It's on Twitch, but it's also on YouTube. We would like for you guys to go check it out there and do all the YouTubey things, like, subscribe, comment, that stuff. And I think that's it. So I still have no idea what I'm doing, and you have nothing better to do. So let's start some Fawks Talks. Cody, hit me with that intro.
Copy that.
Awesome. I was trying to copy and paste something, but apparently I'm not lightning quick. All right, welcome back. Cool. So how's everybody doing tonight? Good. Chat looking good. All right, everybody's up. Cody, how are you doing tonight?
Not too shabby.
Good.
Can't complain.
I can't either, I guess.
I mean, I could, but it just wouldn't help.
Oh yeah, that's true. We'll just mute you. Chris, what's going on?
I mean, I'm doing all right. I've just been building coffins all day, but I'm doing good.
That's actually really funny. So if you guys are unaware, tonight is the official start of we're calling it graduation, probably a misnomer. It's more of an ascension of our wizards to the upper levels, or upperclassmanship. So that starts tonight with Silverthorn, but actually it is everybody's ascension all simultaneously. So for the next 3 weeks, the show time frame will all be the exact same. So tune in after this to see I don't even know. I have no idea. So just tune in to find out what's going on there. And then what else we got? We got so that's the next 3 weeks, right? That's every week for the next 3 weeks.
Not next week, no. So we have.
It's not next week.
Yeah, we have one this week. We have Monster of the Week next week, and then the final two.
Two wizards. Okay, so Monster of the Week, the Duke City Chronicles are next week. So continuing that, and then picking back up with wizards after that. And then on January 31st, 9 a.m. to 3:30 p.m., we have a donation drive. Solo, you want to pitch that a little bit?
Yeah, we're going to do another donation drive. It'll be a fun tournament. It's about all I'm going to tease right now. I'm going to be reaching out to the community. Again, Patreon subscribers will help me make a bunch of characters for our players and our staff to join in on. Monster drops and all sorts of stuff will be welcome. And we're going to do the drive to donate money to help us cover costs for studio and all that stuff.
And channel stuff. Cool. Awesome. We'll look forward to that. So that is on January 31st. So mark it down. Okay, so before we get started, real fast, for those of you who don't know, on our Discord, we started a Fawks Talks community question channel, and in there you can ask the people that are going to be on the show questions, and we'll ask those to Eddie and Lizzy in a bit. But there are a couple for me, so I figured out I don't really want to take time from their interviews, so I'll just shout them out right now at the beginning before we get started, and then we'll get through to the recaps. So the first question for me was, will Thegan search out the ring with the soul of Magnus in it? That's in 3 weeks. So tune in. And question for Ronan, has any of the stuff you wrote for Realms come out yet? And if so, what is it? I don't think directly any of the stuff that we've talked about for the lore show has come out directly, but some of it has. Some of the motivations have started to come out a bit.
Yeah, I talked about the Travanis's origin story, talking to her aunt, and
that's true.
Stuff. That has come out.
Yeah. So now it is sort of in a show canon that Freyl is a woman. So so that sort of stuff is starting to trickle out. But the further we go down into the lore stuff, the more that will come out in the shows. So okay, I think that's it. So let's talk about tonight. So we have a Realms / Silverthorn preview episode. So we have on our show Lizzy, who plays Nafiko on Realms, and Lily on Wizards. And then we have Eddie, who plays Eclipse on Realms, and Ebdar on Wizards. And so as we all know, the Fatal 42 campaigns are all about the choices that were made. So let's start the Ronan's recap and see how they did. Let me get set up here. All right, so first up is Vault 42. We're on episode 8, and it's called Redemption. So we start off the episode following the midnight murder of Harry, husband of Hannah, who was recently turned into a giant cold sore. We start in the silence of mourning, dead silence, as they all are apparently adhering to Ash's rule number 1. Technical difficulties abound as the group awakes from their frequently interrupted night's rest. Ash will awake early to do her normal calisthenics, because as we all know, she places a lot of value in her physique. I wish I could say the same for her mental capacity. I'm not saying she's dumb, but I am saying that she doesn't do more than 10 reps, because that's all the fingers she has. They decide to have a quick bite to eat, minus Tipper, of course, who's watching her robotic figure. They decide to break out their own rations, knowing Hannah probably won't be serving breakfast, probably tired from staying up late doing all that digging. Tipper, with nothing else to do, inquiries amongst the group as to what the plan is. Right now, the only thing on the docket is to return to Rita. Most are excited about the prospect of getting caps, but Petra wants to avoid Rita. As you'll remember, she robbed Rita's husband after their night of debauchery. But my guess is the actual reason she doesn't want to see Rita is because running into an old flame with your current one is always awkward, particularly when your new one is a dork. Sorry, Clay. Speaking of avoidance, they collectively decide to forego talking to Hannah prior to leaving. This is obviously for the best, as there is no appropriate way to apologize for what they did. That and the fact that Hannah's house is defended like it's the fucking Vatican. Combine that with the fact that they've never actually been inside the house, and it's really hard telling what's in there. My guess? Well, she's a depressed old lady just trying to find peace, so I'm guessing there's an absolute ton of drugs. That's my new theory, that she's a drug trafficker. And that's why she was worried about Rita in the city, around all of her clients. Despite being an obvious kingpin, Tipper feels bad for Hannah's situation. Good thing Petra is there because she'll have none of it. Which is ironic, because I can guarantee if anyone could understand having a secret lover hidden away in a basement, it's her. Those in glass houses, Petra. Like Petra, Clay wants to hit the road. Got an itch to put this place behind him, abandoning Hannah to her fate. So like mother, like son. Ash agrees and would rather be walking away from the farm as well, presumably because she can't even stand to be in close proximity to a Mr. Handy. Before they leave, Clay gives Petra his belongings to carry, including his caps. Seems a bit risky, like letting your cat guard that cup of water that is placed precariously on the table's edge. Tipper shows off her new gun like she's at a fucking NRA convention, and combine that with the fact that she doesn't understand basic human rights, and I'm starting to think Tipper's based on my uncle. They finally start to head away from the farm, with Ash leading the charge. As they arrive at the fields, we are quickly reminded of the landmines that surround the property, the first defense of any good drug lord. They make it through with all their limbs, and on the road, the conversation will turn to the aforementioned Mr. Handy. Ash, of course, turns sour. But in a surprise move, Petra tells her to get over it, and I thought for sure we were just minutes away from the captain of the wrestling team getting into a fight with the head cheerleader. But amazingly, this situation gets diffused by the nerd playing Magic the Gathering in the library, Clay. As they continue, everyone tries to take in their surroundings, but all seem distracted. Ash in particular doesn't see shit, as I'm sure she's terrified trying to figure out what that big orange ball of fire in the sky is. It is particularly warm morning, which of course forces Clay to remove his chest piece again, giving Petra those funny feelings as she tries to sneak a peek. Clay seems oblivious, but I bet if she were cosplaying as Sakura, he'd have more interest. Anyways, as they walk, Tipper scavenges around for old car parts, which isn't that hard. I mean, it's Texas. Even without the bombs, a single wad with an automobile lawn decoration wouldn't be that hard to locate. Tipper now has a giant rucksack of auto parts like a hillbilly Santa Claus. Marcus also takes a look into some cars, but even the muscles in his eyes are weak as he's unable to locate anything of value. As night falls on their first night of travel, they see a storm approaching. Rain is one thing, but poor Tipper is a lightning strike away from risking a power surge that would basically turn her into one of those terrifying Teddy Ruxpin dolls. They quickly search the area for materials and find a tarp, which is super common in cars of both Texans and serial killers. They use the tarp to cover the murder shack that they had stayed in previously on their way to the farm and secure it with Clay's kunais. But unfortunately for them, Ash is the living embodiment of a bull in a china shop and rips several gashes into the material. So now they are essentially taking shelter from the rain under a spaghetti strainer. As Ash and Clay work together to set up camp, Clay expresses his gratitude to Ash for her help on this trip. Ash goes about 5 seconds without being an aggravated asshat, and I'm surprised she didn't break out in hives. Meanwhile, Petra uses the rain as an opportunity to clean herself up a bit, which is good because she was covered in so much fluid that she was basically a walking biohazard at this point. Petra has now returned to her more natural form, wet and ready to lay down with a group of people she barely knows. Once the tarp is set up, Ash wants to start a fire, and holy shit, Tipper will help her. I can see the old buddy cop romance brewing, like a new age Turner and Hooch. We'll call it Tipper and Douche. Tipper will then crawl under the blanket with Ash, and that's the end of that sweet moment. Speaking of sleeping arrangements, Clay will lie motionless as Petra snuggles up. He must close his eyes and visually rank the most powerful shonen protagonist in order to avoid anything awkward from arising, we'll say. For first watch, Ash, Clay, and Tipper all stay awake, while Marcus and Petra each sleep, one dreaming of getting the job at hand and the other dreaming of giving the hand a job. During the watch, Clay invites Tipper to join him and Petra on their trip. Clay apparently doesn't think that the pink-haired minx is enough, and now he needs a real-life doll as well. Tipper seems fearful of what will follow after the delivery is made to Petra. Tipper seems fearful of what will follow after the delivery is made to Rita. Afraid of being alone. Clay tries to console her by sounding like a Lifetime movie, reciting quotes from a 15-year-old emo girl's Twitter page. Tipper then cowers from the rain and lightning, and again, Ash surprises me by responding and trying to block the storm. The nicest thing she's ever done, unless you count the time she uses her sledgehammer to perform dentistry work for a local underprivileged community. Soon after, Marcus will awake for his second watch. Clay tells him that Petra is sleeping under the bag, and sweet Jesus, I need a hand check, and really hope he's referring to a sleeping bag. During the watch exchange, the group needs to squirm around and rearrange themselves to get into position while staying under the tarp. Ash ends up kicking Tipper, and I'm sure Marcus is a little jealous watching someone else get punished by Ash. Also, side note, I hope the series of checks that April used in that moment get used in all future bedtime activities. That's a lot of future RP moments for Petra, but I assume Clay will fail anything after the 30-second mark. The night passes without incident, and as morning comes, the storm also passes. The group will awake and share a meal, but shortly after, Petra says she has a headache and is nauseous. It was from the food, but there are assumptions made that she may be with child. Hard to say, but I will say, given her promiscuity, it's statistically much more likely to be syphilis. Just saying. Either way, on the bright side for Petra, she loves to be covered in gross fluid, so puking on herself won't be an issue. Oh, never mind. She has no gag reflex, and she always swallows, so no issue there. Her headache won't easily subside, as Tipper wants to sing along the journey, and talks about it with, quote, Mr. Marcus. And yes, Vault 42 crew, I did look him up, and he is, in fact, a porn star, so thanks for that. That was the fastest 7 hours of research in my life. Anyway, always a solid performer with an enormous video collection. Anyways, our Mr. Marcus hears something in the distance. They all try to identify the mechanical noise. They then see a familiar protectron with its handler. Ash begins to foam at the mouth, sore loser who hates an entire race of beings, and now I'm thinking Ash is also based on my uncle. Either way, she prepares for battle. Seeing red, no one is able to talk her off the ledge, as the blue-haired She-Hulk forces the others to take up arms. Fucking Robot and their handler just walking down the street and have no idea that the Ashhole is about to break kayfabe. Mr. Marcus whips out his hand cannon, and by that I'm obviously talking about his gun. Petra ducks down behind the guardrail, wanting to be left alone, as anybody would with explosive diarrhea. Too bad this is Clay's first girlfriend, and he can't read those kind of cues, so he follows. Ash dashes towards the robot, but can't quite cover the distance. Marcus fires at the robot because, God forbid, anything hurt his mistress Ash. If she dies, who will dominate him? He does manage to knock the gun from the controller's hand. Petra does a couple dry heaves, moves forward, and fires a shot. Clay brings out his knives to this gunfight, which still proved pretty effective. And side note, am I the only one that thinks Clay is the type of person that provides his own sound effects when he throws those things? Just saying. Ash is the one who started this mess and is the last to arrive, but takes a swing with her sledgehammer at the robot. I'm sure this caused a rush of endorphins in her, similar to those experienced by me anytime I pass by a mirror. Seriously, I'm just staring at myself on here. It's wonderful, and I'm glad I get to share it with all you. Anyways, Tipper tries to take out a downed power line and reactivate it, giving new life to what's dead inside. Wish my therapist would take the same approach. Anyway, she takes down the power line, and it doesn't seem to work, so she just awkwardly stands out above the crowd. And 2 points if you got that reference. The handler pulls out knives thrown by Clay and uses them as ammunition against Ash. So I think that means that this handler is exponentially the most badass person on this battlefield. Fight continues as Marcus and Petra fire a few more rounds, and this random road in Texas is starting to look like the OK Corral. Just replace Doc, Everett, and Wyatt with the wannabe ninja robots and Winona. Clay sees his opening and throws yet another knife at the handler, and hitting an artery makes him go Sharingan. Meanwhile, Ash, like my dad after a night's long bender, continues to strike out in a blind rage. The robot tries to defend itself, hitting back at Ash. Little does it know that that's kind of her kink. Tipper runs up and uses skin seal on Ash, which sounds like a nickname a guy would bestow upon himself, but turns out to be a heel. Marcus tries to fire another round, but apparently the sight of Ash in her element has him shooting blanks. Likewise, Petra tries to fire, but her bubble guts causes her to hit Tipper. It's cool though, she'll just blame Ash if it ever comes to it. Clay will join the fight, picking up a dropped firearm, and show this group that this blue-eyes pink dragon isn't a normal nerd, it's a shotgun shogun. Ash, seeing the bot weakened, takes the sledgehammer and just bashes it into fucking oblivion. Like that printer scene from Office Space. Tipper runs up and puts herself between Ash and the Protectron, and it's now, as Ash is dismantling my little toaster, that Tipper decides to tell her about her secret. Luckily, Ash won't listen and pushes her aside with ease, like an old lady fighting Marcus. Tipper activates a shield, but Ash manages to hold her off while continuing the attack. She will eventually get fed up and storm off like Tanya at the sight of her son. Speaking of Clay, with this occurring, he takes the opportunity to search the handler and finds ammo, food, and 350 caps. That's a lot of kawaii posters. Or rather, it would be, but instead he gives it to Petra, and holy shit, it's so obvious that this is his first time that he's ever been faced with the prospect of having sex. Petra, used to accepting money from men, puts it in her false bottom, which, like everything else with Petra this episode, is now spilling out all around Clay. And we end the episode with the group now outside Hub City on their way to back to Rita. So that's where we are with that. It was a good episode. So that sort of the first episode has now come completely full circle with Ash taking her vengeance out on that Protectron. So now that maybe she can get over that a little bit, and they'll go back to Hub City. So we'll get to see all sort of hijinks and awkwardness as Petra tries to avoid Rita. And you can catch that tomorrow. So that'll start tomorrow. All right. So next up is Legends of Shah Ghal. Episode 12, Deep Breath, and it should be noted I did not get a recap, so this is all me. Okay. So the episode starts off on a somber note, following the fuck-uppery of the Legends' last 24 hours. Daffodil continues to play her tune, and Rex prays, but I know we all know that he is just repenting for what he and Jinx were doing recently. They will eventually make camp, still within the caverns, with Daffodil taking first watch. They rest and try their best to forget the recent past by sleeping it away. It's hard to suppress such events, but you can sweep anything under the rug if you try hard enough. Trust me. Following a relatively quiet stint, Jinx will take second watch, but not before Daffodil manages a quick racist jab at Shifters, which seems like a pretty low blow considering Jinx has so many more obvious faults to attack. Speaking of, she'll take a shot from her bottle and in her own form of repentance as she tries to hide her emotions from Oscar, who is a robot. It's like if Oscar tried to hide his sobriety. Why? It's not like she'd understand. She seems particularly depressed this evening, so to distract herself, she teaches Oscar how to look for rocks and the phrase fuck off, which I admit is a really funny use of her time. Because basically he's like a child, right? I think my dad taught it to me around the same age. Jinx will soon wake up Rex for his watch, and there's some puppy love banter that makes those Hallmark Christmas movies seem like horror flicks. Rex's watch is also quiet, so as morning approaches, he starts to brew some tea, which probably tastes like a reflection of his personality. Broody, confusing with a heavy self-absorbing aftertaste. He will also cook breakfast, and it has it ready for the group when they awake. As they say, the best part of waking up is a little casual in your cup. Yeah, that's right. Daffodil greets the morning and the party with a hype song, but they're a long way from their fight with Vecna, so the song seems a little premature, sort of like Rex the night before. They spend the morning continuing west, looking around as they walk. Frizz always staring at his feet, and Jinx is just mentally writing Mr. and Mrs. Rexilius in different fonts, so neither see anything. They'll continue this manner for half a day before they hear the sounds of metal hitting rock. I was really hoping it was the Fraggles, but instead it's just a small, pale figure. And oh fuck, here we go again. Oh no, wait. It's just a single humanoid, just hitting a stone with the skill of a bunch of wastelanders farming. Turns out this thing has dark hair, is gnome size, and is in desperate need of glasses. So I was thinking the obvious. It's Diane. The gnome is familiar with the demented den of demons, but is now lost, away from his home in the Underdark. This poor fool is just wandering around blind, trying to survive, so he immediately has a lot in common with the legends. Rex gives him food and probably a pamphlet that reads, "Take a moment to learn about your Lord and Savior." The gnome's name is Erky, and he's adorable, and is willing to assist them in their travels to the Burger Valley, The Burger Valley, how about that? Daffodil gives Erky a stink bug to eat, because apparently she's the fucking Bear Grylls of this group. Erky, in return, gives the group a rock, which Jinx sees as the perfect opportunity to show Oscar's new trick. Everyone's a bit taken aback, and none seem overly pleased. Like the time I told my parents I was dropping biology to become an artist. As they agree to move forward, Rex puts the gnome on a leash. Seems inhumane, but it's for the safety of everyone, like those toddlers at the mall. And off they go. Rex leads them to what he believes is the entrance to the Underdark, but after some debate, they decide to move on. This is not the place you want to make a wrong turn. Like a backwoods trail in West Virginia, that's a quick way to become past tense. After the day's travel, they decide to stop and rest and start a fire, which flabbergasts their new friend who views such things as fancy, like my aunt who insists that holidays are the only appropriate time for tablecloths. Around the camp, Daffodil will sing a love song for the new couple, embarrassing them, but it gets cut short as Erky tries to walk into the fire, which I feel is an acceptable response to her singing. Oscar decides to record the song for a constant source of anguish for the young pair, like those family videos that your family insists on watching every birthday. Rex will then take the rock from Oscar as the group's paranoia of the cave has peaked. He investigates it and finds it looks normal, but doesn't seem normal, like looking down the dark basement stairs. He then casts Identify and Detect Magic, and after wasting a couple spell slots, he learns just how much Diane has this group fucking terrified to breathe. While this happens, Jinx notices the still pouting Frizz and offers him a drink. Frizz seems to ignore the request, and since alcohol didn't work, Jinx is officially out of ideas. They continue to speak to their new friend Erky, quickly becoming a beloved NPC, and the obvious hook for a quest involving avenging his untimely murder. But in the meantime, he tells the group of what he mines in the caves. Mata perks up after he mentions that he usually finds diamonds, sapphires, and rubies. She doesn't want to leave here with nothing, lows in this prime opportunity. Jinx, having no luck, then offers a drink to Erky. He takes it and experiences burning sensations, so maybe less like Diane and more like Petra. As they all decide to lay down for a rest, Daffodil again takes first watch with the ever-watchful Oscar and Erky. A trio of cuteness that have approximately one brain cell between all of them, like the Olaf, Dopey, and Kronk of this group. Erky and Daffodil speak of the Underdark, which gives Daffodil aspirations to play for the Drow. Let's hope she knows some Joy Division. After sending Erky to bed, Daffodil will wake Jinx for second watch. She walks to the edge of the alcove and, looking at Frizz and Mata, pulls out an old piece of parchment, probably from a bar. Looking at it, she sees an illustration of some old friends while she drinks. And this is the fantasy version of scrolling your ex on Facebook. She then gets her attention pulled away from that by a familiar shadow. She asks if the shadow is someone that she knows, and it acknowledges that it is. This causes her to again hit the bottle. See, I told you there were better ways to forget things. Following this exchange, she'll wake up Rex for his watch, and they'll discuss the shadow for a bit before a brief kiss on the head, which I think now means she's baptized. Rex spends the time of his watch working out, like as in physical fitness. I hope he had his inhaler handy. Man gets a girlfriend and then starts to get fit. Brother, you're doing it fucking backwards. But I can understand his feelings of inadequacy compared to Jinx, who could probably deadlift about 20 Rexes. Either way, it'll be good that he beefs up a bit before the next fight. It means he'll be able to hold multiple books to read while he does nothing to help his friends. After an uneventful evening, he will again prepare breakfast left over by rations, using a spell to put a smiley face on Jinx's dish, which is a sweet gesture, but is the epitome of polishing a turd. Frizz refuses food and still seems distracted or uninterested. The group shows concern, each trying to persuade him to eat, but in typical old man fashion proves too stubborn for these whippersnappers. After eating, they travel for about half a day before arriving at the other side of the wooden planked blockade. And here they come across another entrance to Erky's home. Daffodil sings him a song while Rex gives up some of those rations. I would say he would spread the word of the legends throughout the Underdark, but let's be real, he's going to get lost and die long before that happens. Either way, with that, Erky vanishes into the caves and leaves our legends to their fate. They approach the boarded up portion of the cave, and Rex Swolius busts through them without much issue. Past this, the group finds themselves in an opening out to the mountainside. Daffodil and Oscar notice a path into the valley and into Mythjaw. Rex knows the closest town is Stonehorn, which is weird that they would name a town after my high school nickname, but whatever. This town has dwarves, gnomes, and Goliath, an ergonomic nightmare. Like when I sit down at my 5-year-old's tea party. I wonder what the toilets look like there. Anyways, they start off the path, and it's about this time that they realize they had left Toby, their horse, with the Corregin, and to his fate of being turned into their jello and glue. The path proves difficult for the stubby-legged ones, but they do the best they can, like my wife trying to get a cup off the top shelf. Soon after, they come upon a Goliath, minding his own damn business. Mata shouts out for him for no apparent reason, really, damn near giving the dude a heart attack. After mentioning the cave from which they came, the Goliath straight bounces, wanting nothing to do with the, quote, ones with fangs. Jesus, there were worse things in there? Like, what the fuck is wrong with those caves? It's like the Chicago of Chalagal. Anyway, Jinx is pissed at his quick judgment. Someone reminded her, or excuse me, she's pissed at his quick judgment. She needs to be reminded of that next time they encounter a priest. After she calls out his misstep, though, they do come to terms, and he agrees to lead them to his cabin on their way to Stonehorn. They travel for a few hours and enter a more wooded area with their new friend, whose name is Fold. Fuck that. I'm not saying that 100 times. It's Brad. That's what it is. It's Brad. They eventually arrive at Brad's cabin in the woods. It's his summer place where he and Todd throw bitchin' ragers. Setting in, they try to do a bit of fishing, but get closer to drowning. Luckily, Brad is a boss fisherman and cooks them a sick dish, bro. Frizz once again tries to refuse the food, and he is beginning to waste away over his inventions, slowly turning into the artificer. He's confronted by the party, Daffodil relaying a story of her father who drank himself into oblivion as he abandoned his family to avoid responsibilities. Fuck me, we may be siblings. He finally gives into a little self-care, but I can't help but feel that it was really just to get the party to shut the hell up. But he does seem like his old self again. That is, of course, until Diane throws more dead relatives into the mix. Brad tells them that they are a good family. Solid compliment from a dude who literally lives alone in the woods. They do a cheers to the family, which I assume meant their little found family, because from what I understand, no one in this group should be cheering their biological one. Following this, Frizz and Jinx relish over Rex and Oscar, with Frizz giving her some fatherly advice to not corrupt either of his sons. Let's just not mention the things that happened in the cave. Not sure if Frizz's old ticker could handle it. Frizz is just worried about Rex and his lack of world experience. Rex expresses that he knows things and is experienced, which, like any teenager who spouts that nonsense, makes you remember just how long he has to go. To prove he's a real boy, though, he'll pull out his drums, with Mata and Daffodil playing. The group of wonderful idiots dance around the fire, a circle of jerks, if you will. And we end that episode on a significantly lighter note, as the group enjoys a sweet respite, no matter how short it may be. So they are on their way to Stonehorn, still kind of on their way to this Black Glacier, which is the first actual stop on the quest. So tune in to that on Monday to see them enter civilization again and see what kind of hijinks they get into. All right, so last up on this list is going to be Realms of Ukador. We are on episode 20, or chapter 20 for this, chapter 20, and it's called An Unexpected Turn. So we pick up the episode with the party now on a fast-moving train, finding themselves in a delicate situation. Nafiko's identity was revealed, and the constructs within the train started coming to life, taking a hold of Nafiko like they're the toy soldiers, and this is one of the fucking realms of the Nutcracker. Eclipse unsheathes his dagger, ready to kill the situation away, but with some very well-placed words, Nafiko has managed to defuse it. She speaks of being cast away by the artificer and tap dances around how he created her. They inspect Nafiko's hodgepodge body, but no judgment. All bodies are beautiful, even if they are a monstrosity of different parts. They bond over the idea that they are both trash of the artificer, the type of garbage that would fucking blow Daffodil's tiny, barely functioning mind. The constructs also claim that they were taken by Pyriel and put to work. So not only do they create natural disasters, they also create jobs. So it doesn't seem so bad. I've met worse deities. Rex. The buddies then name the robot they've been communicating with, and they choose Al Gore. So I guess Realm's internet is soon going to be canon. It's actually Alvor, but it sounded like Al Gore. Despite the silly name, Eclipse still has issues with granting it as if it wasn't offensive. Following this, they tell the group that the train will arrive at its destination in approximately 4 hours and then go to shutdown, because even after 5 minutes with the buddies, it's fucking exhausting. With the immediate threat gone, Eclipse messages to Carrick, who per usual is without friends and of course family, alone in a separate car. Being warned to be cautious around the constructs, he goes to sit and rub one out. That means clean your gun, right? I don't know. I'm a liberal. I don't know anything about guns. Looking around, they realize that they basically are trapped and on their way to the castle. Eclipse tries to study the sleeping constructs, but that would be like Roland trying to not kill his sister. It's a foreign concept that makes zero fucking sense. He then moves on to examine the Raven Sword, He spends an hour studying it, so kudos to him. He may be the first cat in history to keep focused that long. His secret trick? He just pretended the sword enslaved him and killed his sister. Meanwhile, Nafiko tries to... Sorry, I'm going to take a drink after that one. Okay, meanwhile, Nafiko tries to read about herself in the Artificer Journal. If only discovering herself was that simple. But no, it turns out that she's got the wrong book. Story of my fucking life. However, the book does mention Pyriel, always in a negative light, which makes sense. You're not going to praise the bully that just beat your ass. It speaks of the castle in the north and how the Artificer was put into full bitch mode and forced to create its defenses. It's described as heavily fortified, and holy shit, Pyriel is Hannah, isn't it? While this happens, Kiwin sends a message to Nak, who I had to remind myself was that Furbolg that they met like fucking years ago. And I'd like to think her experiences with the Artificer and the dragon would have made her outgrow him, but she continually proves me wrong by being a perpetual simpleton. A bit later, Nafiko, speaking with Eclipse, confides that she sort of wishes that the Artificer wasn't dead. An irrational thought, really. Like Lily thinking love conquers all. Dumb. Eclipse will then pass out rations for the group, minus Carrick, who's alone to wonder what it's like to have a dad. Probably. Spoiler alert, it can be overrated. Actually, it turns out Carrick is still hell-bent on taking down the Durgar because they're bad, I guess. And he gets called out for this overt racism, stoked by the persistent shit-stirrer Roland. Carrick is ready to kill outright, but Eclipse and the others want to try to turn the constructs in their favor. So one person who hates robots and the rest who don't. I've seen that before. They debate the two ends of the spectrum, trying to convince the constructs to help or purge their entire existence. Probably some middle ground there that wasn't really explored. Nafiko wakes up Al Gore and asks why her father discarded them. He's upset that she calls him father, so she lies and says that it's just what he wanted her to call him, which, if that were true, is sadistically gross. Former Vice President Al Gore also says that they built the train for the service to Pyriel, who, in their view, is the ultimate good. And honestly, like jobs, infrastructure, they could have worse. Nafiko tries to convince Mr. Gore that Pyriel is indeed evil, and even plays the organic card, showing that not all view the persistent cold as a good thing. And then she also speaks to him about all the killings that have taken place in Pyriel's name. In that moment, Alvor stands up and his eyes turn red, along with dozens of other constructs in the car, as well as Carrick's car. The constructs agree to assist the party in their attempt to take Pyriel down. Just like that. No questions asked. So if you were wondering why they abandoned the Artificer in favor of Pyriel, apparently all they had to do was ask nicely, because these things have not been programmed beyond blind faith. This change of heart, or circuitry rather, leads the constructs to halt the entire train, slamming on the brakes. During this crashing stop, Kiwin must bring out her reindeer, so we are gifted with the hilarity of watching a Puritan curse. That's 2 shows this week. You're welcome, Fablers. With the car stopped, Carrick immediately climbs out of the car, heading straight towards a hate crime. Upon getting there, he realizes the ground is nowhere to be seen, as the train managed to find the absolute worst place to rest. He makes it to the engineer car, though, and he finds the Durgar operators are bound up by their construct counterparts. That's hard to say. After learning that they can't just waltz up to the castle, as they would be killed on arrival, like trespassing on a home with a "Don't Tread on Me" flag waving off the porch, the group decides they need a plan. There is some debate. Nafiko suggests hiding in boxes. Eclipse objects to this because of his past, not because he's a cat, because I've watched my cat struggle for like an hour to get inside of an oatmeal container. In the end, they take the train to a safe location and prepare it to become their distraction. The plan is a bit convoluted, but basically they're going to separate cars that they'll be in, and then the rest of the train is going to be a bomb speeding towards the heart of Pyriel's castle. The obvious first hiccup, is that someone will have to remain behind to ensure it goes off properly. Nafiko and Kiwin obviously take issue with the needless death. Unless you're a family of trolls, they'll fuck them up on sight, no questions asked. They eventually come up with a plan involving Roland and one of the Durgar. And as the train begins to move again, Roland will use his dimension door to return to safety, but not before giving his sister a heart attack. And I bet he was slightly bummed that the shock didn't kill her. It's about now that they realize the second hiccup. Carrot goes to investigate the car connections because 75% into this plan seems like a great time to figure out the most crucial part. From there, the episode quickly becomes a reenactment of the movie Speed, with Carrick assuming the role of Keanu Reeves. Nafiko and Kiwan hold the rope attached to the Dragonborn as Eclipse climbs down to assist with the pins that hold the cars together. As time rushes by, Carrick ends up bending one of the pins, quickly followed by Eclipse snapping his crowbar, and at this point, I literally needed more deodorant, because fuck me, it was stressful. Eventually, they do remove the pins, but it was several intense minutes that you couldn't stop watching, unable to decide if you wanted them to succeed or go down in like a catastrophic disaster, like when you see two people start arguing at the Walmarts. From there, we shift from Speed to Mission Impossible as Carrick and Eclipse leap towards each other in an attempt to get back on the same car. Well, you know, it was actually a sort of a beautiful bromance moment, so less like Mission Impossible and more like Point Break. Carrick once again assuming the role of Keanu Reeves. With all that, with all of them back in the car, just how they drew it up, of course, they are now approaching the exterior walls of the castle with all of its defenses. They are effectively in the shit, as you say. After only a moment, the train bomb hits a section of the castle for a massive explosion, the likes of which hasn't been seen since Petra's roadside tummy ache. The front train incinerates the storage keep, sending all the tail cars through the air and slamming down into the exterior wall. Nafiko and Eclipse were thrown from the train but managed to survive. Nafiko, feeling terrible, uses her hand to give herself a little self-gratification. Yeah. With that hand being someone else's, does it technically count as a stranger or a date? I don't know. Anyways, the group reconnects and gathers their composure as they look upon total chaos and sheer calamity, which checks out considering they sort of just committed terrorism. Reinforcing this theory, their train car full of droidicas start to exit and march towards the courtyard. They watch as their new construct friends charge the castle, but are no match for its defenses. Through the battle, they see a tall figure on a high balcony waving their hand on the army below. In almost a snap of their fingers, most of the construct friends are annihilated, and all that hee-hawing about saving them seems like a giant waste of time now. It should be noted that Eclipse notices that his sword lights up at the side of the figure, like Sting, but instead of being used by Hobbit, it's a cat, so we'll call it Hiss. After disguising themselves as constructs or Duragar, with Eclipse and Kai being invisible, they carefully navigate through the wreckage and a near-miss exchange with the Duragar captain before Eclipse places some ball bearings on the ground and sending that captain face first on his butt. Quickly, the group rushes up to the castle. On his way, Eclipse gets a rude awakening as the sword starts to speak to him, telling him to use it to kill Pyriel, like that singing sword from Who Framed Roger Rabbit, but you know, with murder. Once inside, they realize just how large this place is, which is strange. I guess you wouldn't really have to worry about an AC bill, but it's odd as to why it's so large, since it's only really for Pyriel. Might be a little bit of overcompensating or wanting to appear more important than they actually are. Like that dude who lives near me that drives to pick up his welfare truck or pick up his welfare check in his $50,000 truck. Either way, it's obvious that this being is very powerful, which makes it all the more crazy that they are debating the best way to approach it. Like when my son challenges me to an arm wrestling match. I mean, sure, I could let him win, but he wouldn't learn anything. Anyways, they make their way through the levels of the castle, finding the barracks and dozens upon dozens of sleeping Duragar. Further up, they find prisoners who were caged in similar fashion to those in the Artificer's Tower. The group tries to speak with the captives, but they all back away, scared, afraid to speak, like when I tried to talk to girls in high school. Deciding they are safer in cages, they decide to press on. I know it may seem bad, but they are treated great in those cages. The food and they have a place to sleep. The cages are huge, like the best. No one's ever seen captives treated better. Everyone says so. Later, the group found themselves in a lab with 3 large constructs moving people strapped to tables into positions which they are then attaching devices to them. Reacting to this, Nafiko gets a memory achievement and is awarded with unlocking a new playable character. This one's name is Glib, and it came to fuck shit up. They immediately charged the constructs, flailing her mace about, distracting the machines, while Eclipse was able to find or to land a deadly placed attack. They were super effective at not only destroying the constructs, but also setting off the castle alarms. So yay and shit. So that is where we end there. They are in this room, this, experimental room, with the alarms blaring, and the real shit is about to get realer, I think. So that'll start up on Wednesday. So tune into that for whatever's about to happen. And that's it. So you guys are all caught up on the campaigns, and I think we'll go ahead and take a break here. So go ahead and enter raffle to be entered in the mid-show giveaway, and we will come back with our guest, and we'll see you in about 5 minutes.